One of the first gigs was rather unusual.
Came down to this place in Alvin, Texas. We're expecting whatever, hoping for a sellout, be happy if it's half full.
Behind the long beards, sunglasses, and guitar playing of the iconic band ZZ Top lies a tragic story. From battles with substances to the passing of a founding member, the band has faced its fair share of challenges. Join us as we unveil the tragic details of ZZ Top. Following the band's inception in the 1960s, the band has been faced with a series of band members passing, heartbreak, illness, crash, and both personal and professional struggles. ZZ Top's powerful sound was one that nobody could make. ZZ Top became some of the earliest and biggest stars of the 80s. As a group, they used funny imagery and clips for some of their tracks, like Legs and Gimme All Your Lovin'. Aside from that, they also included a magical classic named Eliminator. As time went up, the band got a lot of recognition all out of its small lineup and simple formula, selling millions of albums and getting inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. ZZ Top is recognized as an American rock band formed in Houston, Texas in 1969. For the period of 51 years, the band consisted of vocalist and guitarist Billy Gibbons, drummer Frank Beard, and bassist, who was equally a vocalist, Dusty Hill, until his passing in 2021. As a band, they were able to develop a signature sound based on Gibbons' blues style and Hill and Beard's rhythm section. One significant aspect of their style was their live performances, humorous lyrics, and the matching appearances of Gibbons and Hill, who wore sunglasses and hats and carried long beards. By the break of 1969, ZZ Top formed after Gibbons' band, Moving Sidewalks, got disbanded, and in the same year, they signed with London Records and were able to release their very first album, titled Tres Hombres, in 1973, after which by the break of 1995, they released Fandango and singles Lagrange and Tush, which gained extensive publicity due to radio airplay. By the break of the mid-70s, they got the desired recognition and had become renowned in North America for their live act. Their success came a new musical direction and image, with Gibbons and Hill wearing sunglasses and matching chest-length beards. By 1986, the Afterburner Tour was able to set the records as the highest attended and highest grossing tour of that time. After the release of their 10th album, Recycler, in 1990, the group's experimentation continued with mixed success on several albums and a compilation album commemorating the band's 50th anniversary. By the time of Hill's tragic passing in 2021, ZZ Top at this time had become the longest-running band. Aside from that, they also became one of the few bands with an unchanged lineup in the history of music. As a band, they released 15 studio albums and sold an estimated 50 million records. Among their achievements, they won 3 MTV Video Music Awards, alongside their induction in 2004 into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. By the break of 2015, Rolling Stone ranked Gibbons the 32nd greatest guitarist of all time. Aside from that, in their bid to support communities and humanity, the band members have supported campaigns and charities including Childline, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, and the Delta Blues Museum. At the time the original lineup of ZZ Top was formed in Houston, the band had a small apartment covered with concert posters, and Gibbons noticed that many performers' names used initials, particularly B.B. King and ZZ Hill. After that, he thought of combining the two into ZZ King, but considered it too similar to the original name. He then figured out that since King is at the top, which gave him the idea of naming the band ZZ Top. This was how the band name ZZ Top was formed. Bill Ham managed the band at that time, and they released their first single, Salt Lick, in 1969. Immediately after the recording of Salt Lick, Lanier Gregg was replaced by bassist Billy Etheridge, and Mitchell, on the other hand, was replaced by Frank Beard. These ones were regarded as the early members of the band. When the band members noticed the lack of interest from major American record companies they had wanted, ZZ Top decided to accept a record deal from London Records, the American affiliate of the British Decca Records label. Etheridge's decision to leave the band was due to his unwillingness to sign a recording contract. Following his replacement, and after Hill moved from Dallas to Houston, ZZ Top signed with London in 1970. They performed their first concert together at a Knights of Columbus Hall in Beaumont, Texas, on the 10th of February 1970. Alongside being the leader of the band, Gibbons was also the main lyricist and was also assisted by Ham and engineer Robin Hood Bryans. Following their debut album, the band released Rio Grande Mud in 1972, which produced their first charting single titled Francine. But with all that happiness, hit tracks, memorable performances, and achievement for the band came a lot of tragedies, struggles, and controversies. Let's get into some of the details. The formation of ZZ Top was like a relief, since they were seeking a harder, danceable, electric blues feel. The members of the band had brought in Lanier Gregg, who made the lineup a perfect one. Well, it wasn't long. Gregg passed on. While he helped give ZZ Top the sound that they wanted, he was so unfortunate to not stay in the group for long. After he joined the League of Musicians who got kicked out of their bands just before they rose to stardom, he then became a major part of the Los Angeles community as he specialized in jazz and classical recordings. He played on the first ZZ Top 45 titled Salt Lick before his passing. Within a period of 1 year after he joined the band, Gregg and his bandmates parted ways over unresolved arguments about musical direction. They needed to look for a replacement for him, so they decided to bring in Dusty Hill on bass to replace Gregg on keyboards. Gregg was one of the band members that the other artists in the group wanted fans to forget about, and as such, Gregg wasn't included as a part of the band when ZZ Top was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Following his departure from the band, he eventually moved back to Austin, where he spent his last years. By the break of February 15th, 2013, Gregg passed on while he was asleep at the age of 64. It was later reported that the official cause of his passing was due to a heart failure. The band completed the recording of Flash in early 1968, but somehow, the record label refused to release it. At this same time, the psychedelic rock movement to which the band belonged was gradually fading from popularity for a few months, and the tension and disappointment affected the band so much and led to some internal tension and a few other tragedies that struck. At a point, ZZ Top's members had to even play in a fraud band. By the break of 1969, the pop rock band The Zombies scored its first American hit in 5 years. With all of these successes, the Zombies had broken up almost 2 years earlier. As a means to use their newfound popularity, Delta Promotions staged Zombies concert tours, but something striking happened. They didn't call on the actual members of the band. In fact, 2 different bands marketed as the Zombies hit the road, falsely believing that Delta owned the rights to the band's songs and that the original Zombies was just for studio creation. Many would be wondering why the fans were not able to recognize them. Well, at that time, the Zombies were more like a band from overseas, so just a few American fans could recognize its members. As a result, the whole plan of Delta Promotions could easily work out, and they'd be able to get away with hiring other musicians to pose falsely. One of the false Zombies group presented was based out of Texas and included Frank Beard and Dusty Hill, who would later go on to form the iconic ZZ Top. Both future stars used the stage names, but unfortunately, the whole plan fell apart after the fake Zombies shows earned terrible reviews from rock critics. By the break of the mid-70s, after a series of commercial breakthroughs and successes, the band was able to find its way as one of the fastest rising bands in the world. Things became good for them, and by the break of 1977, drummer Frank Beard received his first big check of $72,000. According to him, he mentioned that he spent all of it on substances. It was no longer a surprise that he was extremely addicted to substances. Before that time, Beard misused harder substances, but wasn't able to do so much due to the cost. So having the cash to afford them was like a win for his substance cravings. At that time, he had several substances to suit various purposes. He later stated during an interview that the substance use came about as a result of the pressure and workload the music industry and life of fame brought. He even got so bad that he had substances specifically taken for vacation of the mind, as he called it. By the time he realized, he was extremely into the usage, and this point he had to go into a 30 days rehabilitation program and also enrolled in a 12-step program. To give him time to recover and get healthy, the other members of ZZ Top had to also embark on a break, after which they got back in 1979. Well, tragedies of life still weren't done with the band. By 2002, ZZ Top lined up several tour dates for Europe, those being makeup shows for many that were canceled 2 years previously, when bassist Dusty Hill contracted hepatitis C. For the first time in 33 years, a lineup other than the band's usual lineup had to take the stage, all because of a serious medical issue Frank Beard faced. At this time, the band already had a rescheduled show planned for Paris, but somehow, John Douglas had to replace Beard. The tragic event took place just after Beard started experiencing so much pain. The pain he felt was so severe that he was immediately hospitalized. By the time he was examined, it was discovered that he had acute appendicitis and needed an emergency appendix removal. This was a very sad moment for the band. Well, unfortunately, among the bandmates, Beard wasn't the only one involved with substance use. Dusty Hill also got himself into substance use. He misused substances on a few occasions. One time, he took so many substances which led to a chilling moment of panic. On that particular night, Hill was taking substances in his third-floor hotel room with ZZ Top's tour manager Pablo Gamboa, as well as Elwood Francis, his bass tech. Francis noticed that their window was outfitted with a secure metal bar that dropped below the opening, and according to Francis, after he passed the substance to Dusty on the next round, he got up and jumped out the window all of a sudden. Francis further mentioned that they didn't see that he had grabbed the rail with his hand as he was passing over it and was just hanging there. Immediately, they ran over to the window expecting to see him shattered on the sidewalk, but unknown to them that they have been pranked, only to find him there laughing. They were both confused about what happened when he got back inside. Just the sight of that incident alone marked the last time Hill ever took that particular substance. At one point or the other, members of the band were faced with one issue or the other. In 1984, Hill also experienced a painful injury that could have led to his passing. As a part of his custom, Hill used to keep a small handgun inside of one of his boots. On this fateful day, the 16th of December, 1984, his girlfriend at the time was helping him remove the boot when the gun fell out, hit the ground, and self-fired, sending a bullet upward and straight into his abdomen. According to him, he mentioned that when that happened, his very first reaction was lots of exclamations. He couldn't believe what just happened, and he further explained that he didn't feel anything at the time. All he knew was that he needed to get himself to a hospital straight away, so he got into the car and drove down to the nearest hospital. After Hill transported himself to the hospital, he described how he didn't realize how serious the incident was until he got to the hospital, and that was when it occurred to him that he just escaped his passing. Fortunately, Hill made a full recovery. Among the members of the band, Dusty Hill was one person who got sick and injured on tour a lot of times. The band toured for most of its history, only taking significant breaks for emergencies, which almost always involved Hill. By the break of 2000, the band had to pull out of a European tour after Hill received a hepatitis C diagnosis. Hill eventually recovered, but years later, in the summer of 2007, the band also had to cancel another European tour when Hill was sick again. He was examined, and doctors discovered a non-cancerous growth in his inner ear, requiring Hill to receive immediate, non-surgical treatment before it led to any significant hearing loss. In another instance, this time in 2014, while they were also on a tour, Hill experienced a fall on the band's tour bus, which resulted in him sustaining an injury to his hip. Well, this wasn't a minor injury. It was so serious and even needed a joint replacement. This tragedy led to ZZ Top calling off the remaining part of their tour with Jeff Beck. It wasn't up to 2 years later that Hill fell once more, this time in a backstage area just before a concert. As a result of the incident, the show was rescheduled, which consequently put a pause on ZZ Top's tour. And in 2017, the band had to announce to the public that they would be going on an indefinite break from live shows over what the band's representatives called a tummy ailment affecting Hill. Well, this was more like Hill carried every tragedy along with him all through the years of touring with the band. Unfortunately, the bigger tragedy was just around. There's no doubt that fame and the pressures of being a successful band come with its struggles. Getting up on stage night after night, year after year, can be physically stressful and exhausting, and musicians can permanently damage their bodies and mental health performing live. Aside from the physical toll the stress may have on their body, there were other musically unrelated injuries and medical issues. Decades worth of performances playing bass and keyboards. For ZZ Top, left Dusty Hill in such a tremendous amount of pain, specifically in his hip. It got so serious that he had to leave his band's 50th anniversary tour to go for medical treatment. By the break of 2021, Hill headed home to Texas, and by personal request, his friend and ZZ Top instrument tech Elwood Francis filled in for him as part of the lineup of the band. This was more like rock history's more successful band member replacements. According to his wife, Charlene McCrory, Hill had a rehabilitation plan in place, this time for another round of physical therapy, with a different approach. She also went further to mention that as part of his plan, he was to return to the second leg of the tour in September. Tragically, just a week after Hill left his group, he passed away in his sleep at home in Houston, Texas, at the age of 72. Over the years, one thing that stood out for the band was the fact that the only member without a beard was named Frank Beard. However, some fans and casual listeners may not realize that the group's lyrics and some of their memorable lines are equally misleading and controversial. By the break of 1983, ZZ Top got devastating news to either evolve or pass on. As such, the band had to watch as MTV destroyed most rock bands of the 70s with catalog sales. At this point, other bands were cutting their hair and changing their sound. ZZ Top, on the other hand, decided to make a bold decision that would turn MTV's weapon against itself. This was one significant aspect of their career, turning the MTV revolution in their favor. They took hold of this opportunity while other bands chased trends. ZZ Top spent over a decade building something more valuable and contrary to what other bands were concerned about: authenticity. Following their signing to London Records, they slowly built a devoted following, selling lots of copies. At this time, their manager Bill had quietly built a merchandising empire that other bands completely overlooked. By the break of August 1st, 1981, when MTV was launched, most rock bands saw it as just one of those promotional tools usually introduced in the music industry. At that time, there was strict warning of what awaited bands who didn't adapt to the change MTV had brought to the music business. ZZ Top was also affected by this, as they faced an impossible choice of losing their authenticity to either chase MTV's trend completely, as the other bands did, or stick to their authenticity and go into extinction. At this point, a plan came into their mind. They saw something that everyone else missed during this era, and while the other bands got scared of their fate, they were quietly developing a plan that would turn the MTV threat into the opportunity of a lifetime for their career. ZZ Top took their time planning over a period of 18 months, and then decided to craft something unexpected, a plan to turn MTV's format against itself and in favor of the band. Unexpectedly, this first piece of the puzzle came from an unlikely source, and somehow, they didn't see it coming. Billy at this time had been secretly visiting dance clubs. He kept doing this to study what made people move and dance the way they did. His revelation after studying how to merge their Texas blues with what was making people dance came as an explosive. Their approach to recording Eliminator shocked everyone. They were so intentional about their next move in this era. Nothing was accidental. As the plan went on, their manager Bill also planned a marketing strategy that was years ahead of its time. He commissioned a young TV commercial director to create videos that would do more than just promote songs, but they would also be able to tell stories with their songs. By the break of 1985, 7 different major video distributors were battling for distribution rights to their music videos. In just 2 years, ZZ Top had evolved from a blues band fighting for relevance into a global brand. They were able to scale through the MTV era without sacrificing their identity. They refused to follow trends. Rather, it was more like they had created the trends. At this point, they were not selling music anymore. They were selling an entire lifestyle. Their 1985 album sold 5 million copies in the US alone. Between the period of 1983 and 1985, their total revenue exceeded $100 million more than they had earned in the previous decade combined. With the successes recorded, they have also been faced with quite some controversies and speculations regarding their lyrics. There has been a series of speculations about Billy's most memorable lines, which somehow hint at physical intimacy, substance use, and rock and roll, with the slight shade about a drunk uncle who just can't keep the conversation clean around the kids. Among a few lyrics that have caused so much controversy is the Tube Snake Boogie. With these lyrics, Gibbons introduces a few girls who get on to do the Tube Snake Boogie, which is a dance that, as it turns out, is best done with them bare. Another line is the Big Shiny Nine, where the band played sound with words. Many people speculated that maybe the song was referring to his ammunition or maybe a favorite power tool, while others went a bit extreme, saying that they might as well be referring to the male genital organ, hearing Gibbons mentioning that B, Big Shiny Nine, she's mine, all mine, flowing down the front of my old blue jeans. And then he later added that he is fingering his big black shiny nine. This pattern of writing is one that ZZ Top has been known for. Aside from that, along the way, it managed to rock a ton of fans into singing about things that meant something different. Well, there were a few others that fans had to sing along to. Gimme All Your Lovin' was another one where the tune reveals Gibbons' want for affection. And by affection, many speculated that he was calling out for physical intimacy instead, but prefers to term it affection. It was coded enough to pass the standards and gain enough radio play. One of the most controversial lines from the band is the pearl necklace. The pearl necklace sometimes can mean royalty and purity. It's also a term used to describe when a male climaxes during physical intercourse and gets to pass the fluid on or around a woman's neck. Well, this was the idea for the band. They had to cover up the actual meaning of what they meant. And over the years, lots of fans have ended up guessing at every instance of their subtle lyrics. In the song, Gibbons describes a woman's want for a pearl necklace, but as the story unfolds, it's clear he has no intent to purchase this poor girl any actual pearls anytime soon. The story of ZZ Top is a bittersweet one, marked by lots of incredible musical achievements with both personal and band losses. As a band, their story is one full of so many ups and downs, and it is a tragic story that proves that even the brightest stars can be deeply affected by tragedy. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.